All right, so welcome everyone to the Academy of Animated Art. We're doing a live Ask Me Anything session, and this is really my opportunity to talk to some of you. So I'm very pleased to welcome Kleber, Nicholas, and Tyler today. Kleber, I say your name right? It is pronounced
Yes.
Kleber? Okay, and we've got Jonah coming into the room as well. So basically, this was hopefully my opportunity to just kind of get a chance to talk to you, to all of you, to get a better understanding of like where you are and where you all are coming from. So we kind of just did this off camera, but just one quick time around the room. Kleber, you are located where?
I'm located in south of Brazil. It's a town that's called Curitiba. It's a 3 million people town.
That's a pretty big town. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's the capital of this state. It's the capital. It's quite big.
It's very cool. It's very cool. Tyler, and you are in?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Tyler's in Los Angeles. And Nicholas?
I'm in Kansas City, Kansas.
Very cool. Not the Missouri side, you're on the Kansas side?
Right now, yeah.
All right. Like at this exact moment, you're okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was doing with some coworkers, because we usually have these meetings where we kind of like discuss what we've been doing and like what we're doing that day. And it's like, it can get really tedious and stressful. And so what we've been doing is having like one meeting where we just talk about like a success that we've had in a recent, like in the last few weeks, because you know this COVID time is really tough. A lot of us feel pretty isolated, and the days just kind of run together. So I just kind of want to talk to you guys about like, is there anything that you're really proud of that you've been able to accomplish during the past couple months of quarantine times? And we'll just kind of like go around the room a little bit. And I'm sorry to put you guys on the spot. We did not pre-prepare these questions at all. So for that, I apologize. So Tyler, was there anything that you're particularly proud of from this quarantine time?
I guess, so I've been making bread for years at this point, but this has been a great opportunity to just like try new things. So it's been a time of like, well, I mean, could I make croissants? Make croissants. Could I, make brioche buns, do that. And so, I guess as far as small successes go, that's something that's been kind of fun to explore and, try.
No, that's great. That's great. I really like that. Nicholas, how about you? What have you been up to?
Mine's kind of in the same line, but I've been growing grass in my backyard from just literally a dirt patch to actually grass. It looks like a lawn now. So I'm pretty proud of that because I was pretty sure it was just going to look like dirt.
Did you just buy the house or something?
We moved in a couple months ago, and I guess springtime I kind of started working on it. So
that's great. All right, Kleber, how about you? What have you been up to?
Besides computer graphics,
yes, of course,
a lot. I'm probably learning how to make a very good Italian bread.
Okay, that's great.
My mom. I even recorded her doing. Yeah, I learned and animate. Was a very good.
That's great. So speaking of computer graphics, I'm always curious as to how people got into this. And Trent and Asha are here as well. If you guys want to join the conversation, feel free to chime in at any point. I'm curious as to like how you guys got interested in this. Like what was the major thing that got you interested in either computer graphics, animation, or more specifically lighting? We'll go in reverse order this time. Kleber, how are you? What do you got?
Oh my God.
I know. How did you get here today? How did you end up talking to us?
Back in 2002, I was in a game called Neverwinter Nights. And in that game, I was making a lot of things like building the games and developing the design. And the only thing that I was not able to make was the new props, new elements. I was making like a D&D game, and it's like Fire was the name at that time. And I want to create my magic tower. So I started learning, and when I started learning, it was 3ds Max, and then I didn't like a lot. Then I started learning the alias Maya, and on that time I liked it because it was more easily they set up videos, initial tutorials. And then I started from there.
That's great. How long ago was that?
How long?
Yeah, how many years?
I started in 2002.
Hmm.
So it's a few years back.
That's good.
And then if I could keep going, keep telling. Then I did many courses. I did like Axis in art design. I got distinction to get in. I was in UK. Because my story I can tell you a lot about my story. Then I got in a university, BA in computer animation, and then I finished the degree. And then I started working in London for Cinesite, 2 years. Then I moved to Brazil back, and then I started working for Spirit Animation in the last 8 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm just in a nutshell.
That's the quick version. All right,
Okay.
Nicholas, how did you get here tonight?
I initially ended up going to art school to be a photographer. Like that's what I thought I was gonna be. In my first year, I think I quickly realized that might not be the direction I wanted to go. And I had a professor ask me if my artwork in my mind moved. And it was kind of a profound question for me at the time. I don't think I understood, but he's like, well, you're probably an animator if it moves. So I switched to animation quickly after that. But I still had that, kind of bug to be a photographer. So I would just found myself doing a lot of kind of just building, like in my mind, I was building photographs in 3D. It's like, oh, I have full control over everything. Like something's weird, I can just play with it. And from there, it kind of just snowballed into kind of working as an viz artist for a while, for a couple of years, and then using that skill set that I learned doing kind of anything from arc viz to medical animations to, and now I'm a designer, so I'm kind of using that skill set to do experience design for like museums and things like that. But I found that during that whole process, that lighting was the one, like I didn't really want to do any other part of it. I'm like, I don't really want to model. I don't really want to do any of these other things. Because there's people who are really good at that. I was like, the lighting part of it was just addictive, I feel like. Just being able to come up with this, and that's what I loved about photography, was setting that up in that way. So then being able to do that in computer graphics, I think I just kind of kept going down that rabbit hole. And I recently, over the past couple of years, realized this is something I really want to pursue even more seriously. So that's kind of how I'm here now.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And like, I always, so I started with photography, and my major aha moment was when I realized I could light something without any of the equipment that you would have to haul around for photography, like the light kits
Right.
and the cameras and everything. Like that was a big one for me. That's very cool.
So,
Tyler, how did you get here today?
So I took a little different approach. So I have been a working lighting designer for television, concerts, live events, ballet, much more live events, stage productions. I've done a little bit of television work, but it's mostly been lighting for, the eye. And so I've always been kind of curious how people would light for CG or for animation. It's always been sort of a like, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder how they do that. But it's always just kind of in the back of my mind. But COVID has shut down all events. So this has been kind of a great opportunity to really kind of dig into, well, how do you light for, for animation? How do you light in a computer graphics world? So it's been kind of fun getting to poke around and play with that type of stuff while I have the time.
That's great. That's great. And Asha, just so you guys know, she's in the chat window. She does not have audio at the moment. And Adrian, welcome. I'm gonna ask you next, if you're cool, just to see how you got into the industry, or how you got into lighting and animation. But I want to read Asha's answer first. She was an IT professional for about 8 years, but always loved color and light. Having been into painting, crafts, and all kinds of arts since childhood, finally decided to pursue it as a second bachelor's in animation. Actually, I went into school as an enthused about 2D, but quickly realized that pencil wasn't my thing, so I took to 3D and basically married my art and computer skills. Of course, photography has always been a big part of my life too. Trent says, I'm sorry that I couldn't get a webcam delivered in time. No problem. There is a serious back order on webcams in the world. Webcams and microphones are very difficult to come by right now. So if you want to chime in, you're more than welcome. Trent, are you there? Okay, Trent's not there. So Adrian, I want to go to you.
Hello.
Hi. So Adrian,
Hi.
you're one of our newer students. Welcome.
Yes.
How did you get interested in computer graphics and lighting and animation?
It all started when I was serving national service, the army, and when I got bored, so I decided to pick up some art. And at first it was painting, drawing, but I found that it was tiring and like it took too much effort from me. So I joined online courses like schoolism.com. And from there, I've been there for a year or so. And then I decided pursuing art is something that I wanted to do because serving the army was taking everything from me, like very tiring. Yes. So then I enrolled in my current school, 3D Sense Media School in Singapore. So from there, the interest started to develop. Yeah. And I've always been a fan of animated films, like Coco. I guess most recently, Coco was the one that made me think I want to be a part of that. It made me cry so much.
I literally just watched Coco like 2 nights ago with my son, who's like, he's 18 months, he doesn't understand, but like my wife and I were crying by the end of it. It's a very touching movie. Does anybody else have any films that really stood out to you when you were kind of figuring things out that were like, those were your, like, did you guys have any like aha moments like that? Go to Clever. Clever, do you have any films that really stood out to you?
I think many films, from animated films to even for Lord of the Rings, Matrix, so many films, so many films. It's a lot, many inspirations.
That's great.
But for the aha, I think it's not the aha. It's many. I don't know. Sorry.
And anybody else who wants to type in, no problem, Trent. And your mic is muted. Wait, Trent, are you unmuted now?
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Trent, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from New Jersey. I just relocated
nice.
from Australia to the United States just before COVID hit. I was on the plane on end of February, start of March. Welcome.
It's a weird way to come off a plane, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a tough transition.
Yeah, my wife was, she was born here, but I met her in Australia. So we have been in Australia for like the last 3 years together. And so I've just decided to relocate over here. So I've been over here a couple of times, but it's a bit different with all the drama that's going on, for sure.
Right. It's a very different experience. I'm in New York right now. I can tell you.
Yeah, I could hear the sirens the other day going off outside.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do about them. They're just, they're just a common occurrence for us right now. And I should take a second to apologize to anyone who's not in the U.S. or Canada or South America, because everybody in Europe and in Asia are unable to, like, this is a weird time for them. But like I said, I've got the 18-month-old and I'm just chasing him around all day. And like 9 o'clock, he's in bed. I can just sit down with my computer for like an hour and do this stuff. So for anyone who's watching this on recording, I am very sorry. I hope that changes, and I hope to be able to get him back into daycare pretty soon so that I can get back to focusing on this stuff during the daytime. So we've been going around and we were just kind of talking about like were there any films early on that got you inspired to get into this industry?
I'm going to go way back to one that's actually prevalent to the new lighting challenge that you put up, because as soon as I saw it, I thought of it, and I've been looking up reference for it since. But Guardians of Goa'uld, Legends of Guardians of Goa'uld, like beautiful film, lighting for that, character-wise. Unfortunately, it didn't do as well in the box office, but that's because of story and script and other stuff. But visually, it's an absolutely stunning film. And I think it kind of fit the bat and the world and that sort of stuff. Looked really cool. So stuff like that, happy feed. Coco, I also shedded tears, but you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to creativity. If you can get moved in the audience, then it's done its purpose, right?
Yeah, for sure. If you don't cry at Coco, you can just get off the call. Right? No, I don't know.
I'm kind of slightly biased because my partner is Latina, so it's like, you know, it was like looking at her grandmother, looking at her family, and looking at like, you know, different cultural things. And I was actually blown away because since I've met her, some of the stuff that I've seen in real life footage, I was blown away at how well they were able to recreate the culture and the society and the world of Coco. And if you look at photos and reference, it like matches it perfectly.
Yeah. Asha says Wall-E, for its ability to tell a story with less dialogue, was a great feeling after seeing a spat of movies based more on fun dialogues. Yeah, for sure. Like that opening sequence is something I talk about Wall-E a lot, and I look at it a lot as reference for really beautiful like scatter light, like aerial perspective, falling back into space. It's just perfect. Like, and it holds up. Like that movie was probably 15 years ago now. I forget what year it was released, but it really, really holds up well across the test of time. So I think that one, yeah, I think that one's great. Mine was always, and I've talked about this a lot. Mine was always Finding Nemo. I watched this behind the scenes footage of these guys going scuba diving, these artists, men and women going scuba diving off the coast of Australia, and just like defining the look of the water way out in the ocean where it's crystal clear and blue versus close to Sydney where it's a little more green and just like a little more polluted, but like really leaning on that to help tell the story, because things like it gets more tense as they get closer inland, or closer to land. And like that was like my I can't believe that this job exists moment. And I still, like, after doing this for 11 or 12 years, like I still can't believe this job exists and I get to do this every day. It's still pretty cool. We also have, so we've got Kyra, Eric. If you guys want to chime in, you can either share your screen or share your cameras and mics. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Either like where you're from and if there's any movies that have inspired you.
Hey, Mike. A long time no. Yeah, I guess my camera's off. Yeah, I'm just tuning in. I was working and listening, but yeah, I'm gonna have to just be boring and just say Coco again. We had the of lighting, Danielle Feinberg, come to our school to like do a little behind the scenes thing, and that was kind of the moment I was like, okay, I definitely want to do this.
That's very cool. Yeah, no, like Coco just wins, man. When I forget what movie we had just released Ferdinand, and I felt pretty good about it. Like that was we had a lot of fun with that one, and then it got nominated for the Academy Award, and then I saw Coco after that, and I was like, we don't have a chance. Like this is too good. I was like crying and sad at the same time. I was like, come on, man. But that's that's really great. So I want to talk to you guys about. So you, the lighting challenge was mentioned to you all, and up until now, we've just been kind of guessing, and like, I mean, not guessing, but kind of like the bat was actually something that one of our students sent me the link to the ArtStation page of the designer, who's an art director at Disney, and was like, hey, this is really cool. We should have a character like this as a lighting challenge. And I was like, well, we can't just like rip them off, right? So I reached out to him, and the best thing about this industry, or one of the best things, are the people in it are so kind and so generous. And he was like, yeah, if you want to use my design, go for it. So we have our modeler create it. But I wanted to see if anybody had any, like, is there anything that you guys want to create that we could build for you? Anything that's like, I've always wanted to make this type of scene, and maybe we could do something. Clever, you look like you're about to say something.
Yes. Well, I'm also in a community for animation challenges. I think maybe if the TU partner with this community, we could offer, like, if these animators want us to animate their challenge, because every month is a very good challenge. I just see the animation and see, oh, so very good animations. So that would be maybe a partnership between our community and the animation community on that month.
What's the name of the group?
Is challenge. I find for you. I can find you.
Yeah, you send it over later. It's fine.
Yes.
The one problem that we have with animation is they take a long time to render, right? And we have like
yes.
For our students, we do have access to a render farm that we're testing now. We're getting pretty close to being able to just like let people use it. But we can like, but for everybody else, it's just tough because like I mean I just work on a simple laptop, and it's like if for me to render out an entire animated project takes longer than a month. Like sometimes it could take a really long time if it's animation. So I don't like I don't want that to be the holdup. I mean, we did one yeah, we did an animated scene last summer, and I gave everybody 2 months, and that worked out pretty well. But yeah, just yeah. I mean, we'll definitely look into it, but because that's a pretty cool option. But does anybody else have anything? You guys have anything else you want to light?
I think it was interesting, the underwater scene that we did with the axolotl. I thought that was interesting because it was a scenario, like it kind of necessitated a scenario that was different than people might be wanting to do on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to put it underwater. For most part, you have to do that. So I thought that was really interesting to watch how everyone tackled that problem differently. So I thought that'd be interesting as well, as just kind of putting a limitation in a way of, well, it's a volcano or whatever it is, an environment that someone has the restriction, and seeing how everyone tackles that problem differently. Because I felt like that was a good kind of prompt where it's like someone's giving you direction, like, hey, this is an underwater scene. We need to make it look like it's underwater or something like that. So I thought more things like that could be interesting, to where it's pushing in a certain direction, but then letting you go whichever way we want with that.
Yeah, that's great. That's I always find that in the classes that I've taught over the years, is that the more, it's weird, like the more limitations that you give, the more creativity comes out. And forcing people to go underwater is a really good one. I've also, like, my favorite part of the challenges is that, like, I like watching everybody create different things. Like, it like really helps me get a better understanding of the character and what works and what doesn't. So sometimes I feel like when I judge them, that it turns into like the Great British Bake Off show, where it's like I'm judging them based on some format that I didn't mention at the beginning, like how many strawberries there are in it or something. But like it gets to the end and I'm like, oh, this is what makes them look really good. And so I try and feed people that information as I'm going along. Like for the bat, one of the things that I've been finding is that like getting the specularity right is really important, and like kind of adjusting the shader, like especially separating his nose from his face is really important. And then also getting like that, like, because what makes bats weird is that weird leathery skin that they have, especially on their wings, and getting that leather right is really important. Yeah, I don't know. But I do realize that I've been talking to you guys a lot, and I want to open this up to questions for any of you. If you guys have anything for me about the industry or about lighting on films or anything like that, or people have had a lot of questions lately about like what the state of the industry is like because of COVID. And I always tell them that, like, well, we don't know yet because it's still happening. That's the biggest one. But the one thing that I will say is that for the film, and like there's a few major things. Number one is that people are now looking for content more than ever, right? Like people are constantly checking like Disney Plus to see what's new, or Netflix to see what's new, and we can't produce content fast enough. Mostly because live action films are at a standstill, or they have been for the past few months. They can't shoot, they can't be on set. Their limitations are pretty vast. But animated films are still going strong. Like we've all taken a brief bit of time to reacclimate ourselves to working from home, and like we had some equipment issues and things like that. But as of now, we're pretty much humming back along again. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of demand for the products that we create. And it's just like anecdotally, it just seems like there's going to be opportunities that come up as, because, you know, like we always talk about this, but like Blue Sky still exists, Pixar still exists, DreamWorks, Illumination, all the big companies still exist. But Netflix is now building original content, Apple TV, Hulu, Amazon. So like the desire for this stuff is just going to keep going up and up all the time. So although there's, you know, we don't exist outside of the global economy, which is being hit pretty hard right now. But if there's a place to be in a creative field, this is a pretty good place to be in terms of jobs and stuff. But
Mike, I'm really sorry. I have to jump off, but this has been so great. Thank you so much.
No problem. And like I said, I'm playing with these formats on Wednesday night. So if you guys like this, I'll keep doing this.
Yeah, this is good.
This is great. All right,
great. Okay, great. I'll keep doing this. This is
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Eric Dorman, how are you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Where are you located at?
I'm located in Tampa, Florida.
Nice.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. My inspiration for getting into this industry is I am a huge fan of Illumination and all their films. So Secret Life of Pets really sold me on as far as just the lighting and things like that. But I do have to say, after I'm in the second course right now with the character lighting. And I do have to say, I didn't realize how beautiful the lighting is in Zootopia until you started to kind of point out the different, where it's like the one shot where, you know, the bunny, she's in the shadow, and the, you know, the light is cast down on the fox, and it's that, like, there's this divide, and she's obviously feeling really, really blue and down. And it's just, it's kind of amazing how you just transition that and she comes into the warm light. So yeah. So I don't know. It was just, it was really, really interesting to see that, just all these different films where, you know, there's these subtle hints, and then with Baymax and how to light, you know, white characters, you know, coming off of, you know, white backgrounds as well, and how to do that. I thought that was interesting. So anyways, so.
Yeah. No, it was since the company I work for is part of Disney now. We've had more connections with people, like he wasn't the lighting supervisor on Zootopia, but he was for like Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen, some other stuff. He's come over to Blue Sky recently, and I've had a chance to work with him, and it's been really great. And it's really funny. I was just talking to people about the idea of lighting characters that are predominantly white versus ones that are predominantly like very, very dark.
Right.
And the film that those guys pointed me to that I kind of forgot about, and the film I actually liked, was Bolt. And
Bolt.
Because Bolt had a white dog and a black cat in the same scene together a lot, and that's just like a nightmare scenario. You're like,
right.
Like you gotta light them separately. There's no earthly way of lighting them together where his fur won't be blown out or weird and gray and dark. And hers will still look good too. But yeah, those are some pretty good ones. The Illumination, those guys they had their stuff together. They figured out that they just made like fun movies. They were just like, you know what, we're just gonna be straight up fun. Like the Minion movies are fun. Despicable Me movies are fun.
Yeah.
Those are all good. Yeah.
I do have one question though.
Yeah, please.
When you're doing a demo reel, or whoever's looking at your demo reel, how many pieces should be in the demo reel? Like how many, like the limit? Should it be like 4 or 5? Like how long are they looking at, I guess, everybody's demo reel that comes when you apply for a job or whatever? Is it like 3 or 4, and the kind of the shorter the better, that way they get a gist of who you are really quick so they can move on to other people? Or how does that work?
There isn't a magic number, and we don't. I remember talking to people before getting into this industry, and they're like, oh, if you don't catch them in your very first shot, they'll just turn it off and move on to the next one. It's kind of not really true. Like they will, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the first thing that pops up will sway our influence of you greatly because it's our first impression of you. But at no point do we ever like turn it off. And like, we always watch, like I'll watch them all the way through, of course. But for me, there's no like sweet spot of projects or length of time. That being said, I would recommend not going over 2 minutes or 3 minutes at the absolute most. So like 2 minutes or less for me is kind of the sweet spot, right about 1.5 minutes. In terms of number of projects, I would rather see 3 really, really good projects than 3 really, really good projects and 2 mediocre ones.
Okay.
So like with your demo reel, less really is more, because you're using that as your opportunity to present yourself and saying, not only is this my work, not only is this what I've done that's the best, this is work that I feel is strong enough to get me a job. And there's always like this thing that happens, and it sounds really dumb, but it's like if somebody has like 3 really strong pieces and one that's like not so much, you're almost like, do they think that that's as good as the other ones? Because it's like, and it sounds, like I said, it sounds totally strange, but, and students worry about this a lot. Like, do I have enough on my reel? And for me, as long as you have like 3 good projects, like that's enough to at least get the conversation started. As long as you demonstrate like we talk about, like really like the strong character lighting is the biggest one that's going to get you a job at an animation company, because that's the A1 thing that they're looking for is, can you light a character really, really well? And then like, so that's really important. I really like showcasing the ability to light the same scene like 3 different ways to really pull different emotions out of the same set of geometry. I think that's really important to show. Also, that you can match reference, because that's what we're doing all the time, is we're getting reference images from the art department, or you know, reference images from other films or paintings or something, or usually it's like the designers will physically create them, and we have to start matching to that. So the ability to do that, and then with like an environment, taking a big environment and making it feel big, making it feel like a vast space, because it's really easy in CG to make things not feel like the right scale.
Okay.
So as long as you can do those things and demonstrate those abilities, you can do that in a couple projects and it's totally fine. But I am a firm believer. Some people will say you can go up to like 3 minutes, but I'm a believer of like 2 minutes or less, and keep everything very, very straightforward. It's the ones I also get distracted by, ones that like have fancy edits, fancy cuts, fancy title cards that you're like, okay, there's like way too much information on this. And the other thing that I say, because this came up, was that we don't care what software you use. We talk about this a lot, and this is why we don't teach specific software things, because we genuinely, because we know that even though we don't use our proprietary renderer anymore, we're moving over to Renderman. We still have proprietary workflows. We still have unique setups. We still have unique style, unique ways of lighting sequences, so that we know that you don't know that coming in, and we'll have to teach that to you. But we can't teach your ability to make something look really cool. And
right. I mean, you can teach the technical, but you can't teach the art, because that's exactly what they're paying you for.
Exactly. Because honestly, like, to learn, once you've learned a bit of software and like the techniques in one, it's really not that, it's intimidating. You're going to spend more time worrying about learning a new software than you actually will learning the new software. Like, I was freaked out about Renderman when they were talking about, like, man, like I haven't lit Renderman since like 2002. And it was like 10 minutes, like somebody showed me quickly where the buttons were. I was like, oh, and then it was like, oh, you were just off and running. It was very, you realize how, like an area light is just an area light. It's just knowing where to create them. And like, it's like, oh, this renderer can do this well. That means I can do this thing. Or like making AOVs exists in all renderers. It's just a different way of doing it in each one.
I have a question to piggyback off that a tiny bit.
Yeah, please.
But it was kind of because I know like the difference between, like, I use Vray a lot, which is like really heavily being physically accurate. That's like its whole thing. But versus Renderman, which I feel like gives you a lot of tools to break the physical rules of what lights do for more creative control. Do you find that happens a lot, that you break kind of like the way a light should work in the real world just to achieve a specific creative, goal?
For sure. I mean, the film that we're working on now is more abstract, and so like accurate ray trace bounces are our enemy, not our friend right now. So we're definitely breaking it apart and creating because we're creating a look, and that's one of the reasons why we chose Renderman, was that it creates, there's just a lot of creativity there. And with V-Ray you can do it too, but it's just harder, right? Like,
right. They really don't want you to.
Right. And I know like other companies that are more photoreal, like Weta, actually discourage their employees, their lighters, from light linking. They've actually made it like so you can't, but there's brilliant people, so they break it every time and they light link anyway. But I know for some projects they definitely want to maintain that photorealism to things. But yeah, we break it. We'll break it quite a bit because with a photography background, you might like, this is something that I've discovered over the years, is I thought that coming from a photography world would really be beneficial, but it really it's really more about like if you have a painting background, it's even stronger than a photography background, because like we paint with light. Like we don't.
Right.
Yes, we simulate bounces and things like that, but we have to be able to control that to create the look that we want. And that's so much more important than being physically accurate. But yeah, that's my take on it too. And I'm still, like I said, still learning Renderman, but there's a lot of creative control in that.
Yeah, and you have to bend it too. Like in photography, you can't, like, you're outside or whatever time it is, you're kind of, the lighting is out of your control at that point. So, you know, but as a painter or somebody in a 3D space, you're able to, you know, manipulate the light and bend it to your will. But outside, you have, you know, little control of what time you have to go exactly, you know, outside or whatever at the time of day you want or night.
And that's always been my thing too, is that like photorealism is different than realism. Like creating photorealism, because our eyes are more dynamic than film or digital or like whatever is capturing the image, because we can see more deeply into shadows. And I remember I had an art director years ago talk about this, because it drove me crazy when we were creating his films, that he just wanted the shadows lifted and lifted and lifted. He wanted the shadows so bright. And I was like, okay, man, like, but we need to create some contrast somewhere. Like, what do you, and he talked about, he painted, and he talked about how, when he painted, he could like see so much more deeply in the shadows, and he wanted to create films that were similar to how you see, not how things are photographed. And I was like, all right, like, and once he told me that, and once he told me kind of his motivation behind wanting to create that look, I was like, oh, that's very, very cool. I'm way into that. So I think having that basis of knowledge is pretty cool. And like, and it also freed me up when I wanted to create things that were more photo real. I started thinking about them less as being real and more of a style. Like, because photography is a style. Blown out images, blown out white points, super dark blacks where you can't see into shadows. Like, there's never, I mean, unless it's like nighttime, there's never a time I'm outside where I can't see into the shadow. Like, I can figure out what's going on in there, right? But like from an artist standpoint, there are times where we're developing looks that we don't want that. So it's kind of the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do use a lot light linking.
Yeah. It just kind of happens. Like it stinks because I'm like, every time I start a scene, I'm like, I'm not going to do it this time. Every single time. I'm like, no light linking. I'm going to set it up. I'm just going to adjust things. The shaders are going to be perfect and everything's going to work out perfectly. But the second I get in there, I'm pretty, and I can't speak for Jasmine, but I know she is too. We're big proponents of like, just make it look good kind of a thing. And sometimes it's just like something, because like at the end of the day, especially like a still image, my God, you just break the crap out of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just do things in different render layers, piece them together, whatever you need to do. Especially if it's like a one-off, like for these lighting challenges, just go nuts with them, man. Like go like render out a separate pass. It's just like everything's a mirrored material, and then you can like paint in some reflections in places that you want. Because I remember on an early film that I worked on, it was me and another lighter, and he was like an MIT grad, and so we were both working with this character dealing with like these reflections of himself. And he was like obsessed with getting the calculation of the reflection right and like degrading the image based on the mirror. And I was like, I'm just running a separate pass and I'm just going to color correct it. And I got it done so much faster than he did. And he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's because I didn't care about science. not that I even have enough knowledge where I'd be able to calculate that stuff. But I mean, he is extraordinarily brilliant and his work is extremely good, but he can get in his own head a little too much sometimes. It can hinder him from getting it done. Now, I would never want to duplicate what I did again, but yeah. Oh, Asha had to run. Sorry if I'm a little late to saying goodbye, but thank you, Asha, for stopping by. And hopefully you guys can have microphones and cameras, because it would be great to see and talk to you guys, because I'm really
sorry about that.
No, how dare you? How dare you land in a new country?
Just lurking in the shadow every week, making comments.
Selfish. Sorry.
Can I just piggyback off the back of the comment of having to break stuff? I've had a little bit of experience in the industry that Mike knows about, but you guys don't know. I've been a junior that worked on the Lego movie, and then I crossed over to work on the Cats movie. The Cats movie is probably a good example of somewhere where you would have to break stuff. You get given a lot of material that's filmed on set. So you get given the reference plates of where all the lights were set up on the day. Sometimes it changes from day to day. So you might get given 5 shots in a sequence that they've decided to move a rig around, but you're trying to work out, hang on, where's this light gone? What's this light on this character's face? And that was really quite challenging for the team because we had to match a digi-double 1-for-1 with the actor itself. The skin color, the light shaping, the shadows. And as much as the modeling team and the surfacing team did a great job with the subsurface and that, sometimes it just doesn't react or interact the way that you want it to. And then when you throw fur on it, even if we set up the lights that was physically correct to where the lights were shot on that day, the fur wouldn't interact necessarily the way you wanted to. And then you like, there was 1 or 2 shots that I'm not necessarily proud of that some of my like seniors would laugh at and stuff, because you just got to get the notes done. And I had to put in lights on an angle just to hit the angle of the fur in order to light stuff. And it was frustrating, but you know, you look at it, and I think one of the guys just said it before, it's literally, you've just got to get it done and get what makes it look good work. And sometimes you have to think outside the box, and hopefully your art director that you walk in the room understands that and has a bit of a laugh with you. And eventually when you get it, you just craving for that final. But yeah, it changes. Like, you know, having worked on both animated features and live actions now, there's definitely something I miss about animated features versus live action. And there's a certain level of creativity that you get when you can take something into comp and follow it all the way through, as opposed to a live action where you are basically in charge of a level and basically handing it off to comp, and you kind of work in a real team orientated sense. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I got to see the guys do on Lego, and Lego was my hat off to everybody that I worked with there, because they're amazing, talented people. And to make something so small and miniature look so detailed with the scratches and stuff and bring it to life, and then to see all the work that was done in the comp side of things as well, sometimes it worked just out of render, but then sometimes it would also be about finding those challenges to make it fit what the art director wanted it to look like. And you know, just a side note, I remember walking in there, and one of the comments that the art director made was, I want it to be like 1980s Wonderland super funk. And everyone's just like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? I mean, but like the team, like it's such a great people. What brings me back to it is like, I love the guys and I love everyone that I've worked with, all departments, but everyone has a laugh about it, goes back to the desk, bangs their head against the wall, turns to the person next to them and says, hey, can you have a look at this? Do you think I've hit the note here? And someone gives you some feedback, or they say, no, you might have gone off on a little bit of a tangent or something. And it was really kind of nerve-wracking at start, feeling like you had to have everything perfect. But the guys are so laid back, and everyone understands how hard it is to get in the industry, that once you get in the industry, it's one big happy family, basically. And I feel like, yeah, it's a great sort of place to be. And you get challenged every day, and you have to work out stuff that works and things that come outside the box. And especially as a junior going in, one thing that's, you know, kind of nice, you do get some room to show and sort of flex your creativity, but you're not going to be given super complex stuff straight off the bat. Go, hey, develop a key rig for this like major sequence. You know, you'll get some guidance to an extent. They'll give you a couple of shots and they'll say, look, we need you to match these shots to these existing shots. And once you show that you can do that, then they'll start feeding you a little bit more crumbs and a little bit more crumbs until you get into a good place and you get thrown something that's super challenging. And, you know, speaking about my own personal experience, one of those shots for me was on the Lego movie where the girl gets slid across the screen. She gets thrown some glue on her head and it's got glitter inside the glue. That took me 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I was sitting there wrecking my head because there was no glitter reference in the movie that I knew of. We didn't know that our team over in Vancouver were working on some Christmas special with glitter and stuff. So I took the shader that they gave me, and then we looked up some reference, and it was like, do I make like this glitter or do I make it like that glitter? And I sat there and I was trying to push it and trying to get it, and it went around in circles creatively. And then we eventually found a look that we worked on. But the thing that I appreciate from that process was not trying to expect that it's going to work straight off the bat. And the more I simplified my process, the more we found a look that actually fit what we wanted and what we after. When I tried to go too crazy with it, it was so easy to go off tangent and so easy to go down a path and go, well, yeah, you know, that it looks nice, but it's not quite doing or interacting how we want it to be physically accurate. And for Lego Movie, it was something that needed to be physically accurate. So we stripped it back, and I was actually impressed with how it came out. Even after DI comes through and throws their touch on it as well, I was really impressed with how it looked after the end of it.
It's amazing how everything kind of comes together by DI's color timing after the process. So after it leaves the studio, it goes to these magicians that do color grading and color timing, where they just watch them film over and over and over again and dial in the colors to make sure that the sequences themselves are all like, I mean, you're doing it as a lighter from shot to shot, but they will make those adjustments so the whole film flows together. And you always get these weird requests from them, like after the fact. Like, I think we're done with the movie, and it's like all of a sudden they need a matte of this one element to send out to LA for all of these shots, and you're like, okay, and you just render this matte element and send it out to the color timing place, and then they'll make an adjustment. You never really know what they're doing, but yeah, you come back and it's always so brilliant. So for the Lego Movie, were you like? I always imagined that you were running around taking macro photos of actual Legos as reference. Was that something you ever did?
There's definitely a Lego miniatures trading war that goes on like a daily or weekly space in the little hip chat conversation, and they would give out little minifigure packets that were exclusive that hadn't even been released yet. Sometimes they would be just spares that production could find lying around, but we would just have them decorated all over our desks and stuff, and someone would be like, oh, I've got Batman in the microwave in his robe, you know, anyone want to trade for that? But if you went for a walk, and like going back to sort of my journey before I started lighting, so I got the lucky opportunity to be a part of the wrangling team. And that really opened my eyes up to see departments and production and every single aspect of the pipeline from a whole different perspective. And I got to know everybody. And at nighttime, when I was doing the graveyard shifts, I used to go for a walk inside the layout rooms and stuff like that. They actually had some of the shots physically built right on the table, so they could look back at reference and go, this is how it's supposed to feel, this is how it's supposed to see. So there is a lot of reference that goes into play. A lot of the bricks have to match explicitly that ID to what the Lego wanted it to match. And as a wrangler, we would have times where jobs would break on the farm, and you'd look at the logs and be like, yep, someone's put a brick in there that they're not allowed, and it would come up with like illegal brick or something like that. You know, so there's definitely a lot of miniature figures and things that would go around, and we had a lot on desk. I brought a whole box of them over to the States with me. I'm kind of attached to them, but yeah, it's like a badge. It's like your military badge. You got another little minifigure, and then you just eventually stack up with 2, 3, 4, 5.
I have a quick question that kind of ties into what you were talking about. But my first question is, say you get in the industry, you're a junior lighter. It's like you're brand new. You're working on it. What are some of the things that those people do that make them successful in those roles?
Successful in getting into the industry, or successful once you're in the industry and
once
in that
you're
role?
In there, and then you're working, you're doing what you need to do. But what are the things that, you know, some of the pitfalls they might fall into, or some of the things that, like, hey, that person's on the right track there?
Firstly, and not to gain brownie points with this whole community, the level of work that I've seen in this community is you'd be hard pressed to not be offered a job, especially in places in Australia. Some of the stuff is on the level of what I would say a mid-level artist. Some of the stuff is super challenging, so I'm super impressed with that. But once you get in the role, I think the biggest thing is leaving there's a competitive nature, right, that comes in this industry. And I like to treat ourselves like what I would call a digital tradie. And for people that don't understand that, it's like a tradesman or on a construction site, someone that would go do the plumbing or whatever. You represent yourself. You represent your work ethics, your morals, your values. And if you come in with the right team spirit, the right work, and try to contribute, people are going to want to work with you again. Hands down, they're going to look at, okay, I like the way this guy worked. I like this. If you come in and you become difficult, then it makes it hard to create that team spirit sort of thing. And I think, when I come back to the competitive sense, when I first met my lead, I said to him, I'm just going to come in on Saturday because I want to bring myself up to speed. I want to read all your docs, because when you get into big studios, you're actually lucky enough that the material there is crazy. They've got docs and libraries that you can just sit there and read and learn and bring yourself. And I was like, I'm going to come in on Saturday and I'm going to work and just read stuff. And he goes, we don't need you on Saturday. And I said, it's fine. I'm just going to come in. I live 5 minutes down the road. I'm just going to go to the gym across the road and come in. And he goes, look, I get it. I understand that you want to, you know, be better than, like, get better than people and stuff like that. But we don't need that. Don't worry. Save your energy for when we need you to come in crunch time. And at first, you know, I thought, like, I said to him, it's really not about the competitivity. I don't care, because I'm not striving to be better than the person next to me. I'm striving to be the best that I can be. But I did understand towards the end of the project, because I was there in that like crunch time with Christmas where we were sort of hitting long hours and stuff like that. But you come in and you get buddied up usually, or you get given a group of people. And I think asking questions, you just got to ask lots of questions, be proactive. Mike's already said it before. If you can get told something, go away, do it, and come back, they'll remember that, or you'll be more successful. And sometimes not being afraid to, like, throw out if you get given a shot, get given a note, do something, get into dailies, and then honestly say, yeah, you know what, that didn't work, did it? And then you go back to your desk and you reset it. You know, there are times that if you could sit there as a junior, and it's really easy to fall into a trap where you're like, oh, I've just got to hit this note. I'm not going to submit it into today's dailies. Maybe I'll put it into tomorrow's dailies because it's not quite there yet. And you just want notes and feedback. And one of my absolute favorite, shout out to Hazel if she ever watches this, but she was a senior that came in one night and she said, what are you still doing here? It was like 7 o'clock. And she's like, what are you still doing here? And I said, oh, I'm just trying to hit the note so I can get it into daily review for tomorrow. She walks over to my screen. I was in Nuke. And she looked at my notes and she goes, what's the note? Reads the note, looks at it. She goes, you've hit the note. What are you doing? I said, oh, yeah, but she goes, you've hit the note. Go home. And that's one message, that you can stay there 2 hours and stuff, right? But you've just got to, like, remember not to be attached to the work too much. Attached to it in the sense if you want to create something beautiful. But things can change tomorrow. You could spend 3 hours working on a note that you think is going to hit it, and then the art director comes in and just flips it on you and throws everything out the window, and then you got to start again, and then you've wasted 3 hours of your life. And those 3 hours, for someone like Mike, maybe not me, add up over 20 years that you can't ever get back again.
It's the God's honest truth, because you come in there with your hair on fire and you want to take over the world, and you do, and like people have this calmness about them early in the process, and you're like, don't they understand? We got to get this stuff done, and they're like, no, they've been through this a lot. This whole thing's a marathon, and I've watched people burn out too early working, you know, like a 20-hour day or something crazy, and you're like, just ease yourself. And I think you said something really brilliant when you're talking about like being a good person to work with, because if you ask me, they're like, if you would rather work with somebody who's really easy to work with, or somebody who's a little bit more talented, or someone who's a little bit easier to work with, I'll take the easier to work with person every single time. Because like, you'll want to work with them, you'll want to teach them, they'll get better, they'll get there. But yeah, as long as you're, and yeah, as long as you're hitting your shots quickly, like I've said in classes, and you're turning stuff around, it's all good. And it's like, it really is a genuinely kind industry full of people who want to be here, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty good place to be. So I think Trent said it beautifully. All right, I don't mean to cut us off, but we're at about an hour, and I was going to say that I was going to leave this for about an hour. We'll do this again next week if you guys are cool with that. I really like this.
Yeah.
Trent, I have many more questions about the Lego movie because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, that's fine. I came from a hospitality background, and you know, I'm a little bit older. I'm 34. I actually finished my degree. Finished high school in 2003. Found a flyer after watching Lord of the Rings and went into like a silicon and graphics diploma type thing and did a short course. But sadly, because I was young, I was like 20, I was 18 to the 21 age at that time, and I was making really good money behind Sydney Opera Bar and hospitality stuff, that I got distracted with life. And I quit my job, left Sydney, moved over to Perth to finish off my degree. And it was in that time that I moved off that I was like, oh, you know, I was having a midlife crisis sort of moment where I'm going, I'm 26 now. I don't think I'm going to make it. By the time I got to 28, I'm like, oh, you know what? There's a render wrangling job. It's not really an artist gig. Do I really want that? I was like, you know what, stuff it. I'll just do it. And I threw the advertisement out and I said, look, if I can't get in the industry by 29, maybe I'll change my mind or whatever. I got in there, and like 60% of the workforce is 28, 20, like in that sort of age range anyway. So it's like, there's so many false pretenses with this industry that make people get intimidated. And I've seen so many great friends of mine that I wish they never gave up.
Mm.
And I don't mean to be mean to them, but I wish they had to push through and kept going and chipping away and submitting it. Because the thing, and the honest, hardest truth about the industry is that you do work on, sometimes the timing is not right. Production schedules and things like that. So if you don't get a job offer back, that doesn't necessarily mean you weren't ready for it or they didn't want you. Maybe, I think Mike said it before, production values, budgets, costs, maybe it just didn't fit. The timing sometimes doesn't align, and when it does, it does. And then, you know, eventually once you get in, you get more experience, it does get easier because you develop a relationship with recruitment and they get back and forth and you speak with people. But even that, I've seen people that are too shy to necessarily just touch base with recruitment and people and say, hey, what are you guys working on? What are you up to? Is there anything going on? And the people that I've seen that have got 10-year experiences in this industry or more and worked in seniors, animation supervisors and that, are the people that have just want to have a conversation in the coffee room and get to know people and, you know, really get to be a part of that whole community. And like, yeah, I don't want to sound corny or anything, but it's a family. And some people may, you know, you have your brothers and sisters you grow up with and stuff like that. And you have those moments where you may get frustrated, but everyone's in there working away at the same thing and working on the same shots. And at the end of the day, everyone, I don't know what the kind of community is over here in America, but everyone lives for that Friday night drinks. It's just like, you know, for the wine and the laugh and the glass and the beer. And it's like, oh my God, that shot, I'll deal with that on Monday. But like,
we do, yeah. I mean, right now, virtually every Friday at 5 p.m., we have a virtual happy hour with my coworkers. And it's like, I've been on Zoom sessions with them all week, and I love those guys so much that on Friday, at the end of the day, I still hop on a Zoom session with them. And somebody shows everybody how to make a cocktail, and we all have a drink and talk about our week. So thank you guys so much for joining me. This was really, I was terrified coming in that no one would show up, and you guys are brilliant.
Oh, no.
No, thank you, Mike.
No, you guys are great. So
nice to meet you all, guys.
Yeah, you too, Sharon.
It's been great to see you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. I'll see you guys all next week.
All right, bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.